What crappin'? Stop yapping and build some shit. I am Cordell Rufus III. We're going to do a quick update on the E36 Beast MW. I have the car apart right now, actually. Everything's good mechanically. We even had some tuning done on it, some basic stuff. And we have... I need to replace the AC compressor because that was junk. And then at the same time, we were having some cooling issues with the spall fan that was on there. It just wasn't moving enough air. And this place, Delta PAG out of New York, they make a brushless fan system. So we're gonna do a unboxing on that right now. And this says read first, so let's go ahead and take a look at what this is. I would imagine this is just a printout of their directions, which I've already read through on the internet. They have a PDF. So for you guys, yes, read through this. For me, I've already read through all this stuff. And the wiring on this thing's really basic. You basically just need 12 volt constant, a ground, and then a ignition on-off source. So I've already kind of pre-wired everything for that in the car. And then this is the fan. So let's get this thing open. We'll put this on top of my drift motion box that I got today, which also has a AC compressor in it. Let's see what this bad boy looks like. These fans are not cheap. So we have a 16-inch fan. These are a 3-phase brushless fan. So here's the digital controller. You can just mount this in the engine bay. As long as it's not like right next to the exhaust, you should be good. And let's look at what all we have. So this is I would imagine this is like a rectifier of some sort that converts the 12 volts coming out of the controller to the 3-phase, something like that. We can figure that out as we go. And this obviously mounts right there in there. And let's go ahead and pull this thing out and take a look at the wiring.
So does that thing spin?
Yep, that's what keeps the engine cool. So this is the brushless fan wiring. So obviously this plug would go into the controller that's going to mount right up here on top. And I believe that just clips in there. If we can get it to pop in there real quick. There we go. So that clips right in there. And then this, nope, that's not it. It's this one. So this clips right in there. And that will convert to the fan. And then we have these wires. This is the harness for the temp, I would imagine. One of the controllers. So this goes into the controller. I don't think that goes into the controller. Oh, that goes into the other side of here, which makes more sense. And then we have our relay. So we're gonna have our ground, obviously. And then we have our 12 volt battery source, and then this green wire I believe is our 12 volt ignition source. And then one of these wires we're not going to use because it's for an AC. So this little red wire is 12 volt switched. So some of these wires we're not going to use. And then I've already tapped my radiator for this, which I believe is 3/8 MPT. So we'll go ahead and get this thing wired up.
Daddy.
Well, we got the Delta PAG controller in there, the fan hooked up. Everything worked really good. The only issue is we're still having overheating, just kind of heat soaking at idle, and the 2JZs are notorious for creating a lot of heat at idle. And I think our issue was the radiator comes out to here and the fan is like shoved up against the engine block. So what I did was I removed the AC condenser so we can run a pusher fan, which we're still waiting on to come in. But I also took the Mishimoto X-Line radiator, and what I did was I added a filler neck to the side, which will get rid of the Chase Bay's inline filler neck. I don't like that thing. I don't like that it sits lower than the top of the radiator. So this is just a general Jegs weld-on radiator cap setup, and then I used one of their 90s into the tank, and then also we made this Mishimoto X-Line 3-row radiator into a triple pass. So we put a divider in here and a divider down here on this side. So now the water has to travel across the radiator, come down, across the radiator, come down, and across the radiator, which technically that should make the water sit in the radiator twice as long. So that's going to help us out a bunch. I'm going to throw the original fan setup back on there with the polar fan on the back and just see if doing this made everything way better. And if it works now with the polar fan on, it's definitely going to work when we put a pusher fan on with nothing in the back of this radiator. So we're going to give that a shot and give it a try. Well, we got the triple pass radiator in there. I actually just threw my polar fan back on there just to try, and we no longer have a heating issue at idle, although we are definitely not flowing enough air to keep this thing cool once we get heat into the radiator system. So once we yank this fan out of here, we should have all this space back behind the radiator, and we got the room in front of the radiator now to where we can put a fan in the front to push air through the radiator. So we should be good. But we've definitely proven that you can, you throw a couple baffles in your radiator and you're good to go. You can see the one baffle that was welded in right there, and then the other one on the other side that was welded in right there. So, but the radiator worked way better since we did that. I mean, it's effectively increasing the time that the water's in the radiator by 100%. So it's sitting in there twice as long. And then once we get the pusher fan, we should be good to go. And we can just run the Delta PAG controller wires, which I already have. I ran them just up to the front so we can plug the pusher fan in, and we'll have all that room behind the radiator, and hopefully that should solve our problem and we should be good to go. So hopefully we can quit messing with this thing. This radiator cap setup I have on here barely clears the hood. I actually ended up having to cut a little section out of the hood support underneath to get it to clear. But it clears, and that's all that matters. We just needed it to clear. And so if you're going to do something like this, you want the top of this radiator cap, or the bottom of this cap, to be a little bit below the top of the radiator intake. And then you should be good. But pretty cool.